Hello and welcome to Maritime Innovations. Today I'm joined by Adrià Jover. Adrià Jover serves as president of the International Electric Maritime Association, the IEMA, a global organization dedicated to connecting, collaborating, and advocating across the electric and hybrid maritime ecosystem. He leads international efforts to link all segments of the industry, from technology innovators and vessel operators to policymakers, ports, and investors, to accelerate the transition towards zero-emission maritime systems. Through IEMA, Adrià works to strengthen global coordination, support deep tech development, and advance innovative projects that drive the adoption of electric propulsion, energy storage, charging solutions, and emerging maritime technologies. Adrià, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Joachim. Pleasure to be here with you.
Adrià, let's start very broad. So from your perspective, where does electric maritime stand today in terms of maturity and real-world deployment?
That's a great question, because we definitely have seen an evolution within the last 24 months, could say. While 5 years ago, the technology readiness element was a big concern within the industry, I think that we matured that element, to the point where the majority of the clients, new interest, prospective projects, the main concern on the table is not anymore the technology readiness. Is well understood that there is solutions for each case, well tested, well run, years of track data, and then thereafter there is a trust that these solutions outperform the previous ones. So technology readiness seems to be something under control and building up, a greater amount of trust.
That's interesting. It really sounds like we're past the concept phase, but still very uneven depending on where you look. And what would you say, which vessel types and operational profiles are best suited for electric and hybrid solutions today?
We call it the sweet spot, the mid shelf, where all these workboats, all these port boats that do daily work, assisting from pilot works or assistant boats. Those are, for us, we've seen a great amount of purchase orders. The other one would be public transportation, point A to point B, predictable movement, predictable routes, predictable energy consumption. That is a no-brainer. It's proven already that in terms of cost, in terms of efficiency, in terms of fuel and energy efficiency, it's a much better solution. And then you have other things such as short distance fishing fleet or wind farms maintenance fleet. All those are becoming, an unstoppable wave of retrofitting or deploying new full electric units.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And when the operating profile is predictable, the whole equation becomes much more realistic. Let me ask, what are the key technical limitations that currently prevent a wider electrification in shipping?
If you ask the industry, most likely they will say that the main limitation, the main bottleneck nowadays are two things. One is infrastructure and overstructure, the ability to plug in. It tends to take years and tons of permits for this shore power to be installed with the safety, measures appropriate to for megawatts or kilowatt AC/DC technology. The other one will be capital deployment and subsidies. We're not talking about little projects. They tend to be on the millions. And thereafter, those two elements. We see, and the International Institute of Energy, the last 3 years already, consecutive years, says that $7 out of every $10 invested in the creation, distribution or commercialization of energy, $7 out of 10 goes to renewables. Thereafter, we know that there is political will. We know that the markets understand that this is not future, it's present. But we need way more. We need more capital deploying. We need subsidies, as has been applied in other sectors, and so that is infrastructure and infrastructure. We, from IEMA, we identify, though, one element that for us is the missing element or the missing party on the table, which is electric utility companies. We have great technology, we were talking. We have mature technology. We have fleet owners and port authorities aiming and keen to adopt and to invest in it. We have the public opinion and governments willing to provide the legal frameworks for these projects to flourish and mature. But there is one sector here that is affected directly and is disrupted, which is electric utility companies. And this is a sector crucial for the evolution of our societies, of our mobility, air, land, and sea. And it seems that their models are kind of disrupted because they're being from centralized to multi-layer, multi-creation points of microgrids, substations, and all this is changing the way they understand the flow and the contracts and the price of kilowatt, that traditional has been set. Thereafter, I invite from here electric utility companies to participate on the debate so we can help. They need to be an active party in this equation, and this will help us to accelerate the process.
Yeah, right. That's a very clear reality check. And it's not about excitement, it's about physics and practical constraints. And I'd like to understand how important are ports, grid capacity, charging infrastructure in enabling electric maritime solutions?
Well, they're the King Kongs in the room, but I'm very positive, and now it's not anymore wishful thinking. Fry traveling around the world in all continents, in India a month ago, 3 weeks in Singapore, in US, in China, you can see in all the major markets and the 20 or 25 major worldwide ports league, all of them, they are committed. And they started not a year ago, not 3 years ago, 7, 8, 10 years ago, with multi-billion dollars, with B, multi-billion dollars projects to electrify all their terminals. And this is not a matter of sustainability. This is a matter of efficiency to remain competitive. And ports, like airports, they need to remain competitive. And this is by the order of the major fleets, such as Maersk. This is by the order of the internal distribution and commercialization of goods. That connectivity, every second that you can reduce the upload, download of trade, this is what puts a port authority on the map. And that means control, that means digitalization, that means data, that means electrifying all these pieces of the supply chain. So ports are actually leading the decarbonization path from our point of view.
That's a strong point. It underlines that electrification is not just an onboard decision, it's an ecosystem decision. But let's look at the IEMA's perspective. What role do industry associations play in accelerating the electric maritime adoption? And where do you see the biggest gaps between the technology readiness and real-world deployment?
That's a great question because ourselves, we've seen, we are a young organization, fast growing, probably the fastest growing organization within our space. And what we've seen is the old model of trade association having an annual gala, an annual gathering, newsletters, and some benefits, to the members becoming, and unless you provide data into the market, you have less reason to exist and to be. So what we are called, what we are asked by regulatory bodies, by our own members, by institutions, is to provide data, and it's wider, concept, metadata, microdata, consolidated data about performance, about cost, about energy consumption, any data, either it's in form of life cycle assessment or from actual data happening, in any vessel around the world. That is what's being more valued because that's what has been missing in the industry. Data to make choices and not make choices based on assumptions. This is a game changer. So IEMA is here using the technology and using the deep technology members to provide us with this amount of data that then we can, in form of paper or in form of briefings, we can supply to International Marine Organization, to International Standardization Organization, to local governments, etc.
Adrià, thank you. This was very insightful, and I really appreciate the clarity and pragmatic view. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Joachim. Pleasure, and see you soon.